Okay, welcome back. This is going to be section number 4 of the Neighborhood Ambassador Orientation Training. Section number 4 in your manual starts on page number 10. Okay, so in section number 4, we're going to be talking about resources and tools. We mentioned that in the agenda, and here we're going to give you some ideas, just like we gave you some ideas about possible places to launch your ambassador activities. We're just going to provide you with some ideas about resources and tools. You don't have to use these. These are really just meant to get your creative juices flowing, and as you get more experience as an ambassador, you may find other resources and tools that are extremely helpful for you. But here we're just going to lay a baseline for you that might be good to help you get started. And so much of what we're going to talk about in this section offers some combination of hard copy options, web-based options, and then online resource guides as well. So let's go ahead and get started by looking at 211. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with 211. What we're going to talk about in this section is a brief introduction to it. And then we're going to look at something called the taxonomy guide for 211. And then we're going to talk about a more in-depth training opportunities. Let's get started with our introduction. 211 began its first call for help in 1996, and this service was started and is still run by United Way for Greater Austin. And then the Texas Health and Human Services Commission established the 211 telephone network statewide in 2002. And this is a neat feature that I like about 211 is that it's completely free, it's multilingual, it's accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's completely confidential. So if you as an ambassador call in, or an older adult calls in, or their caregiver calls in, you will not be identified. And so there's absolutely no wrong door for people that are calling in. Now, if they're extremely busy when you call, there could be a 30 to 40 second hold time, but then once the 211 operator comes online, they're going to be really knowledgeable about the type of information that they house. Now, anyone in crisis still needs to dial 911, not 211, because 211 is not a crisis line. So instead, 211 is really a helpline for health and human services that provides nonprofit, faith-based, and government resources only. And so the purpose of 211 is to help meet the needs of the community by providing information and education and services about what's going on. Now we're going to talk about that taxonomy guide. And a taxonomy guide, before we look at the 211 version, is really just kind of an umbrella of various types of large topics. And then under each one of those large topics is, say, a subtopic or a subcategory, and then there may be additional files that narrow down based on that particular topic. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the 211 taxonomy guide that starts on page 11. Now, on page 10 that I just mentioned a moment ago is the United Way 211 helpline slides that may help familiarize you with how to navigate the 211 network in case you want to go online and look at it there. And let's just briefly talk about that. And we're going to look at those 6 slides, but instead of looking at them in terms of columns, we're going to kind of use a Z formation. Okay, so that first slide is just the cover slide for 211. If you go to the right, it's got all the 111 services. Okay, so you're going to see 911 there, 311, which is non-emergency police, 411, which you probably are familiar with, that's directory assistance, and then in a larger font is the 211. Okay, then you're going to go to that left-hand column, the middle slide in the left-hand column, and it's got your language options there that you can choose from, and then it's got 3 boxes, and the 211 network option is the box on the far left. Okay, go to the slide to the right of that. So that's going to tell you sort of the process of how 211 works. It's done in a graphic. And you can see on the left-hand side of that slide that you can access it via computer or by phone. If you go to that feedback loop in the middle, it talks about how the 211 operator will have a caring voice. that one of their functions is to do problem solving, that they have detailed information about various types of resources, and that they also have information about advocacy. And then on the far right side of that slide are the various types of information that they provide about the community and government services, and then faith-based services such as we just mentioned a moment ago. And then back in the left-hand column, that last slide are the neat features that I just mentioned a moment ago. And then on the right-hand side are various types of categories for that taxonomy guide that we're going to mention right now. Okay, so on page 11 is that 211 taxonomy guide. So what you're going to do as an ambassador, or you're going to instruct an older adult or their caregiver, is when phoning 211, you may want to go ahead and ask for elder services. Okay, that's going to go ahead and tell the 211 operator what type of category of information that you're looking for. Okay, so let's say, for example, you know that you want to find out something about adult education, which is that first bold fonted item that's underlined, and maybe you need information about ESL or GED. So you could tell the 211 operator, I need information about elder services as it relates to adult education. Now, if you know even more specifically what that is, you could say, I need information about elder services that gives me some information about adult education, especially around adult literacy programs. So I think you guys get the idea. We have housing and utility bill assistance, which we talked a little bit about in section number 3, legal services, victim services, and so forth as it goes through page number 12. Okay, so that's the taxonomy guide. Now let's talk about a more in-depth training opportunity. Okay, now when I talked to Amy Price is the person that arranges the trainings for 211. There were some dates in 2013, but the last date was back in September 27th of 2013. So I called Amy and I said, you know, why are there no dates in October, November, December? And what she said is, well, really what they want to do is to go out to local groups and do these in-depth training opportunities as opposed to having people come to the 2000 East MLK location, because when they were doing it at their site, they couldn't predict whether 5 people would show up or 50 people would show up. And so really what they prefer to do is to come out to your organization. Now, when they were doing it at their location on MLK, there was no need to register. It was run from 2 to 3:30 p.m. But at this point, you want to go ahead and ask Amy Price if she can come out and go ahead and do that. Now, before we get to the website address, go back to page 13 in your manual. And I want to point out some additional resources for you. Okay, this is in addition to the manual that I talked about earlier when we were talking about downloading documents. That's a separate different resource guide. But in this manual for the orientation, let's talk about some of the sections for this particular portion. So here at the top on page 11, we've got the different section topics: activities, advocacy, Alzheimer's, and so forth. And so the sections in this guide will start based on those various topics, and it's done alphabetically. And so let's say an older adult says, well, I really want to get engaged in an activity in the community, but I don't know where to get started. And you might say, well, what about Austin, Texas Bingo? Or what about the Dougherty Arts Center? Maybe they have an exhibit or they have some classes that an older adult might be interested in. Again, those senior activity centers that frequently have classes and tours and various types of recreational types of activities. So those may be some options for you to share with older adults. And then this particular section goes all the way from page 13 to page 23. So there's quite a bit of information there for you to share with older adults, and I'd encourage you to go ahead and familiarize yourself with it so that when you meet with older adults, you're knowledgeable about the various types of topics that are going on there. Now, in the meantime, if you want to learn a little bit more about 211, I wanted to provide you with the website address. Next resource we're going to talk about is called the Austin Seniors Guide. And the Austin Seniors Guide has an option. It has an online option, and it also has a hard copy option. And I'll talk to you more about that at the end of this particular resource. But I also want to let you know that the Austin Seniors Guide provides space for nonprofit organizations, but also in the form of for-profit. And the reason why that's important is Some of these resources have to generate income to continue to administer their program and continue to publish the guide. So I just wanted to alert you to that. Now, the Austin Seniors Guide is just one publication under the umbrella of the Texas Seniors Guide, and that'll make more sense in just a minute. And it's a free annual publication, so it's produced once per year, and it's mailed out to more than 65,000 baby boomer and senior owned homes in Travis and Williamson County. And then the guide also has information about phone numbers to senior friendly businesses, resources, we'll talk more about that on the next slide, articles that are of interest to older adults. This is a feature that many of the resources and tools have. Of course, the articles under each resource are different, a local events calendar, and then a medical diary. So what are some of the resources that the Austin Seniors Guide has information about? Well, first, about golf and travel and pets, all types of information about estate sales and care management, financial information about investments and taxes, then information about events that might be of interest to older adults, such as bike-a-thons, and then healthy recipes and athletic clubs, dental services, medical equipment, and so forth. Those are just a few of the examples. Now I want to talk to you about how to get the hard copy or the online copy. Now, you may recall in section number 1, when I was talking about the skills that an effective ambassador would have, I said basic computer skills, and that's where this particular slide's information is going to come into play. So let's just look at that first bullet in the first line there. Okay, it says enter the email address for a monthly e-newsletter. Okay, so let's say that you're meeting with an older adult. Let's say it's at that WellMed Charitable Foundation located on Ben White Boulevard. They have that great exercise room that I mentioned a minute ago. But they also have a great room that's brand new with computers. I like to call it the Computer Cafe. Okay, so you may meet with an older adult. They may not own a computer. They may not know how to turn it on. They may not know how to get to the internet, much less get to the Austin Seniors Guide. Now, this may be a skill that they want to learn. So as an ambassador, you could teach them how to do that. You could help them create an email address, and this might be something that's really fun for them to learn because lots of young people, lots of grandchildren are extremely technologically savvy, and so this may be a way for them to keep in more frequent contact with them. So that might be something that you want to help them with. However, they may say, well, I'm not interested in learning the internet or how to set up an email address. I'd rather you just do that for me so that I can get a hard copy of the guide. Or if none of those options work, I'm going to provide you with the phone number for the guide, and I'll do that on the last slide. And then they provide all types of additional guides for various types of groups. And the guides are also available in Dallas, San Antonio, and Fort Worth. So hence the name Texas Seniors Guide. Now, the online option is a little different than the hard copy option. And really the difference is that the online option can be updated more frequently. So it's going to be a more current version of the Austin Seniors Guide that's produced annually. And so the online guide is going to have a detailed map showing where each business is located and their contact information, a link to their website. And then for those who are interested in a non-career, there's also job postings on the industry networking section of that site. Now, here is the Austin Seniors Guide phone number. We did have their physical address, but Antoinette over there was asking me to remove that because really what they want you to do is call based on the neighborhood that you're in, and they'll tell you where locations of those guides are located so that it's easier for you to go ahead and get them. But if you want to just give the representative your mailing address, they can go ahead and send one to you just in case you don't want to go through that website, but there is the website information. Okay, so that's it for the Austin Seniors Guide. Next is the Ride Guide. And I like the Ride Guide. This has a lot of really neat features about it. And the Ride Guide really provides information about transportation for older adults in the Austin metro area. And it was originally published in 2004 by Faith in Action Caregivers, who still continue to publish the guide. It has a variety of transportation options. I'd like to share 3 of those with you now. One is called Curb to Curb. So let's say we have that volunteer transporter. The volunteer transporter goes to the older adult's house. Okay. The older adult walks out on their own. They get in the car. The volunteer transporter takes them to their meeting, errand, or appointment, drops them off. Then when that older adult is done with their meeting, errand, or appointment, the volunteer transporter comes back, picks them up, takes them back home, and drops them off. That's curb to curb. Door to door. Volunteer transporter pulls up in front of an older adult's house. They get out of the car, they walk up to the older adult's house. They accompany the older adult into the car. They take them to their meeting, errand, or appointment. They walk them into their meeting, errand, or appointment. They leave. Then when that older adult is done with their meeting, errand, or appointment, the volunteer transporter comes back, picks them up, takes them home, and walks them to the door. That's door to door. Door through door. Volunteer transporter comes to the older adult's house, walks up to the front door, goes into the house, helps the older adult get out of the house and get into the car, accompanies them to their meeting, errand, or appointment, waits for them while they do their business at the meeting, errand, or appointment, helps them get out of that particular facility, get back into the car, walks them up to their front door, and helps them get back in the house. So that's curb to curb, door to door, and door through door. Now, this is a completely free service, but they need to accept donations because they have to continue to produce this guide. And then the last bullet are some possible locations where a volunteer transporter could take older adults. Now, it is produced by Faith in Action caregivers, but it's not congregation or faith specific. Instead, you have to be a minimum of 60 years old and living independently in the community. Now, volunteer transporters do not transport wheelchairs. Okay, if you're taking them to a doctor's appointment, for example, and there's a wheelchair there, they will bring it out to the car. Okay, but you have to give 3 days notice in order to participate in this particular program. Now, the guide also has information about a lot of different topics, such as driver's license renewal for older adults. So let's say, for example, that an older adult, their license expires when they're 79 years old. That older adult will have to go to their local DOT office to renew their license. And then information about how much disability parking permits cost and driver safety resources such as AAA. How to adjust to life without driving. Many older adults have to rely on others, so it's about staying positive and knowing how to reach out to other people to help with your transportation needs. Questions older adults should ask when considering their various types of transportation options. Rural transportation, Williamson County, Caldwell County, Hayes County, and so forth, many counties. And then our volunteer transporters do not transport wheelchairs, but the Ride Guide has information about accessible services that do. Okay, so here is the address for Faith in Action caregivers. If you want a hard copy, you can just go to their website to download a PDF version, or you can call them. And then here is their website address. Okay, that's the Ride Guide. Next is New Lifestyles, and New Lifestyles is going to have an online version as well as a hard copy option. And they also have space for for-profit businesses in the form of advertising and sales, but they also make space available for nonprofit organizations. Now, they promote themselves as the source for senior living in Travis County because they provide the most comprehensive and quality information on senior residences and care options. And they produce more than 39 guides for metropolitan areas in the U.S. and Canada. They're completely free to the public. And then their online database has information such as senior housing, state licensing, and regulation requirements. Now again, their online guide is more up to date. They can update that more frequently than they can the hard copy. And they have forum and discussion boards that may be of interest to older adults, information about senior living and care, information about aging issues and products and services. This gets at the for-profit business aspect of this particular publication, and a calendar of events, and then frequently asked questions such as low-income housing for older adults. Here is their address. You notice it's in Dallas, okay, but they do have a toll-free number because they also make information available for Austin and San Antonio, so you can feel comfortable calling them in Dallas. And then here is the website address. Okay, so that's New Lifestyles. The last one we're going to look at in this section is called Elder Options of Texas, and this is an exclusively online resource. And they provide information in Texas about home health care providers, senior living options, and then retirement options. And they have services in more than 85 Texas cities, so it's extremely comprehensive. And you can look for information about those services using 3 different methods. So you go to their website and you can just type in a keyword to find a particular service at a particular site. They have a map on their website that has different color-coded regions. You can click on one of those color-coded regions to find services, or you can just visit the company profiles for those many web pages, and that gets at the for-profit business aspect of this particular publication. And then they have information about cremation and funeral planning, all types of caregiver information in the state of Texas. Articles are of interest to seniors, and then information about national organizations such as the Alzheimer's Association, or even information about legal issues for grandparents that may be seeking custody of their grandchildren. So those are just a couple of ideas about some of those featured links. And then here is the website address for this resource. Again, it's an online resource only. Okay, so that wraps up this particular section. We're now going to be moving to section number 5, and we'll get to that next.